So today, welcome to New Knowledge Series, and thank you all for coming. Today we are very excited to have Jim Christensen, who is the District Manager of Dale Carnegie Incorporated for, I'm assuming, Southwest?
Dale Carnegie of Tennessee.
Dale Carnegie of Tennessee, so that close. But anyway, Jim is going to teach us how to win friends and influence people, and some other helpful hints. So without further ado, Jim Christensen.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you all very much for allowing me to come in and share some lunchtime with you. I really appreciate it a lot. A person at their best is extraordinary. And when we look at how people interact with each other, it truly is all about human relation skills. It's about attitude. It's about skill sets. It's not necessarily the information or the knowledge or the technology they know. That comes with an assumption. If we're in a business setting and we're doing architectural work or whatnot, it is assumed that the architects within that room have that capability. But how do we further our relationships part? Is it the individual who strikes me as being sincere or shows me appreciation or my opinions matter and I can truly feel that with them? Those are the people I deal with. Those are the people I deal with in business. Those are the people I deal with in my personal life. Whether it's the person who cuts my hair or the person who does my yard or whatever that is. The reason why I do that is because I like them. And so we get into a situation within our organizations to where work becomes a very laborious task because there's a lot thrown at us all the time. And we fail to understand truly the value of human interaction simply because there is so much thrown at us all the time. In most companies, training generally is on a horizontal platform. It is all technical. It is the pricing structures or the product line or whatever that is. And if that budget is expanded, it's generally expanded within those areas. But it's the attitude and the skills that truly bring a cohesive nature to a business together that helps that company grow. Now, this is a part of an employee engagement series that we have done. We did a global research. Dale Carnegie, how many are familiar with Dale Carnegie? Has anyone taken the Dale Carnegie course? Have you? Fabulous. Did you take the 12-week course or?
I took a course of not several years ago. It's just a day course.
Great. Well, Dale Carnegie was started in 1912 by Dale Carnegie, of course. He's from South Central Missouri, and he went to New York, and he was teaching classes at the YMCA on public speaking. And that was a time when the Depression was really hitting hard, and he found a need that people weren't able to discuss how they could contribute to a business or how they could work themselves into an organization to get a job. So he started out with 3 people at 30 cents a person, and then as it gradually grew and grew and grew, he started writing down these principles on 3x5 cards and was hiring other people to teach these classes. Those 3x5 cards eventually became How to Win Friends and Influence People. That is a book that he wrote in 1935, and it's based the principles of all Dale Carnegie on. There are 30 human relation skills, 30 stress and worry management principles. We are in 90 different countries, taught in 32 different languages. We are the preeminent leadership company in the world. Sometimes we're the best kept secret, but we try to get out of that mold. We deal with Fortune 500 companies, the governments, all the national laboratories, Microsoft, and all of which. So we've had a great experience of working with people. Now, employee engagement. We went out and we wanted to do our surveys on, this was the first time we worked with MCM survey company, and we wanted to find out why people weren't engaged with their workplace. And it wasn't how to get them back engaged, it was why were they disengaged. And some of the numbers that came back is that 26% of all surveyed were 100% disengaged. 100%. Give me my check, all's good, building burns down, show me where the unemployment office is, and we'll go from there. Now, we looked at 3 areas within those organizations. We looked at the direct relationship with the supervisor, the trust in the executive leadership, and the pride in the company. 86% of that 26%, 100% disengaged, was directly related to the relationship with the immediate supervisor. People leave people. they don't lead companies. And a lot of times how those organizations have grown their supervisory capacity or their mid-level managers or whatnot, they're homegrown, they haven't been really taught the basics of how to become the liaison between corporate policy and the front linemen, and so there's just a series of areas there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is employee engagement. What does employee engagement look like? And how can we promote that within our organizations? Sound like a winner? My name is Jim Christensen, and I have been with Dale Carnegie for about 3.5 years. I'm a small business consultant and still am, and have been for over 30 years. We are with Dale Carnegie of Tennessee. Dale Carnegie is a franchised organization, but we're very tightly held by Dale Carnegie Global. I am the regional director for Dale Carnegie of Eastern Tennessee, and my area goes from Dalton, Georgia, all the way through Abington. So Food City is one of our large clients, and so I'm very, very happy to be here. So, without further ado,
good evening, folks. Welcome aboard Southwest Airlines Flight 372, service to Oklahoma City. Those of you that have flown us before know that we do things a little bit differently here on Southwest. Some of us tell jokes, some of us sing, some of us just stand there and look beautiful. I, unfortunately, can do none of those. So here's the one thing that I do know how to do. We're going to shake things up a little bit. I need a little audience participation. Otherwise, this is not going to go over well at all. So here's what I need, especially you guys in the front, because you know what's coming. All right, I need a beat. All right? All I need you to do is stomp and clap, and I'm going to do the rest, because I've had 5 flights today, and I just cannot do the regular boring announcement again. Otherwise, I'm going to put myself to sleep. So, you guys with me? All right. So give me a stomp, clap, clap. Come on, stomp, clap, clap. They don't be there. There you go. Keep that going. This is Flight 372 on SWA. The flight attendants on board serving you today. Teresa in the middle, David in the back. My name is David, and I'm here to tell you that shortly after takeoff, first things first, there's soft drinks and coffee to quench your thirst. But if you want another kind of drink, then just holler. Alcoholic beverages will be $4. If a Monster energy drink is your plan, that'll be $3, and you get the whole can. We won't take your cash, you gotta pay with plastic. If you have a coupon, then that's fantastic. We know you're ready to get to new places. Open up the bin, put away your suitcases. Carry on items, go under the seat. In front of you, so none of you have things by your feet. If you have a seat on a row with the exit, we're gonna talk to you, so you might as well expect it. You gotta help evaluate in case we need you. If you don't want them, then we're gonna reseat you. Before we leave, our advice is put away your electronic devices. Fasten your seatbelt, then put your trays up. Press the button to make the seat back raise up. Sit back, relax, have a good time. It's almost time to go, so I'm done with the rhyme. Thank you for the fact that I wasn't ignored. This is Southwest Airlines. Welcome aboard.
is that an engaged employee? And I do have to say that the audio and visual is a little bit off. The old white guys in the front really aren't that bad in their rhythm. But when I saw it, I was going, well, they really are. But anyway, getting back to it, 1935, How to Win Friends and Influence People is the book that has established Dale Carnegie as a preeminent leadership company. It has been redone, and it was done about 15 years ago to How to Win Friends and Influence People in the digital age. So we are rapidly, I don't have a clicker, so we're just going to roll through this. Workshop objectives. Redefine employee engagement from an employee perspective. Once we start establishing ourselves, looking at it from an employee's perspective, it's always easier to become more engaged because we want to stay away from compliance. If somebody is just acting upon orders, it is compliance. There is no additional effort, nor is there more additional caring going into that process. Do you all agree? Between compliance and assess and define your personal level of engagement. Correlate levels of engagement to team success and leverage techniques for creating and maintaining employee engagement. What does employee engagement look like? In your participant manual, you have defining employee engagement. This is on page 2. It says, think of a time when you felt engaged or disengaged and what factors created this feeling. And the list is that your personal definition of employee engagement is, if you'll take a moment and think to yourself, when was a time when I was engaged or disengaged in my workplace, and what factors created that feelings, and jot a few notes down, and then look at the definition from Dale Carnegie, which is employee engagement is the emotional and intellectual commitment of employees to deliver high performance. What is your definition of employee engagement? So take just a few moments and tell us about a time that you were either engaged or disengaged, and what were the factors that caused that, to help us identify it, and then just list down what your definition of employee engagement is. Take about another 20 seconds or so, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Okay, who would like to share an experience of when you were engaged in your workplace? Yes.
I think the times that I feel most engaged is when I'm working with clients and I'm seeing that I'm making a difference.
Tell me more about that.
Like working with an entrepreneur and assisting them with their passion, and you kind of get caught up in the way that they're so passionate, and you become involved in it almost like a cheerleader with them. Like you feel like you're assisting them.
So it's all focused on their wants and needs. Right?
Yeah, and being a part of that, you
Yes.
almost tap into their energy, and it's, that's one of my favorite parts of my job.
And what did the organization do to help direct you to that engagement, or is that just when you feel engaged in that particular moment?
Well, yeah, I don't know that they're, well, just having the opportunity to do that with a client. But you kind of, I think of when I'm engaged as I've got tunnel focus on what I'm doing, and that I'm not thinking, my mind's not wandering, I'm just 100% involved in what's going on. That's when I think of engaged, that's what I think of.
Sure. And a lot of that comes with empowerment as well, because a lot of apprehension that comes with us is really the inability to make a decision. And so if we're constantly dealing with people out in the open or in the public or however that is, and then we have areas that come up and we don't have the ability to make a decision on the spot, two things happen. One, I feel diminished in my power to be able to handle that. And two is, I have to relinquish all of my conversation with the client to let me get my manager. And if you have somebody who's not in the happiest of moods, the first thing you can do is throw gasoline on a fire going, let me get my manager, so they have to explain themselves all over again. So that's wonderful. Who else would like to share?
I'll share. I find myself engaged when I'm challenged, I'm given an opportunity that pushes my limits, and I feel excited about that. And then, more importantly than that, I think a clearly stated purpose. Monotony drives me crazy. So I like to be given a clear, defined purpose for the goal at hand. And once, whether I create that purpose myself or someone else creates it for me, when it's clearly stated and I understand the goal and objective, the purpose, I feel very much engaged, because I know where I'm going.
And the organization needs to know your strengths as well, and the changes and challenges that you're facing. So in order to put you in that position, they have to understand that he's very good at doing this, and so that's giving the authority to do that. Correct? Right. It's a generational diversity as well within the workplace. You know, we're dealing with 4 generations now, even the traditionalists, but there's the baby boomers, guys like me. You have your Gen Xers, you have your Gen Ys, and soon to become the Gen Zs or the 911 babies or whatever you want to do it. But in 3 years, the Gen Ys will be the largest consuming generation in history. In 10 years, there will be the largest wealth shift of mankind happening when all of us die and give all our kids the money. And so they're becoming an extremely important part of our workplace. But the diversity of beliefs and things are tremendously different. In my generation, our elders, the traditionalists, marched to orders. I mean, they were given an order and they ran with it, and that's how it was done. My generation, we followed the same. We knew that if I put my head down and I did everything that was asked of me and I went above and above and above and above beyond, that's where our recognition would come from. And so in my generation, you have a title means a lot. It's not because I can wave it or flaunt it. It means that I've been here for 30 years. Senior vice president means I bag groceries. So I have seen it all. And in the millennials, that's not the case. And so when we're thinking about, gosh, I'm not receiving my due respect for my title, or the millennials thinking that I really don't see the value of that, it causes disparaging situations, but they're all not based upon truisms. Because the millennials do not disrespect the baby boomers, and the baby boomers actually don't think that they have no respect. It's just that's how we seem to fold things. Baby boomers, we still own the companies. We still make all the decisions, for the most part, you know, outside of the younger ones. And we're retiring at $10,000 a day. So we have this huge level of mid-level management of Gen Xers. They were the original baby latchkey kids. The dual income parents or the divorced parents or however that was, they're extremely comfortable with their own decisions. They're extremely comfortable on their own, and they don't want to be micromanaged at all. And so you had baby boomers coming from the traditionalists bringing up this mid-level management, and we fill those positions, so life is good. However, we've not extended it to the millennials that are coming up. And the millennials, the Gen Ys, and we always say, well, it's the question, why this? It's because of questions like this, is that what is it that I'm doing now that contributes to the big picture? It's not insubordination, it's not anything else. Truly, it's no longer marching to orders, it's, I want to know, how am I contributing? And so looking at that generation and develop them, it truly is that here's what's happening. Within our organization, we have all levels of generations. The president of our company, he and I talk maybe once a week. That's good with my generation. In Gen Ys, it's every day. They want to know where they are. They want to know whether they're doing something that they should be doing or how can they be getting better. So it's just it's sort of a getting accustomed to the different generations that are approaching us. And so when we're looking at Dale Carnegie, this is a huge area for our growth because of succession management. My generation, we're exiting. Xers are moving up. Ys, we don't have that in place on where's that next level of managers. So they're using organizations such as ours and others as a litmus test, truly to see who has the capabilities of moving up within the organization to take those mid-level management positions. So it's extremely important to understand the diversity in the workplace because of the generations, and to make sure everyone is talking with each other. And that's called engagement. because we all have great ideas, we just sometimes don't like to share them, right? So who else has an engaging time when you were engaged in your workplace?
I'm engaged pretty much now because there's two of us here, but I guess, so Jennifer and I stay highly engaged. But I guess maybe what I want you to know about your audience is you've got a little bit of a unique situation in some of the people that are here, because even though they're department heads, they're also, they operate under the town government, and so even if they are doing everything that, you know, that from their perspective, that the way they want to operate, then they still have a council and some other levels of management that they have to deal with. And so it actually puts an extra layer of challenge, is a good word.
An extra layer of challenge?
An extra layer of challenge, I think, for that type of situation. I'm sure it's much like the corporate situation where you answer to boards. But
when did you see that it worked well, and when did you see that it didn't work well?
For me at the incubator, it works well when I keep my board fully informed of everything that is going on. And when there's an element of surprise, it stops working for me. So I try to make sure I write a report to them, and I try to make sure I keep Jennifer and we have a part-time person, Tim. I try to make sure that we are all on the same page and we all know exactly what's going on for the day, you know, as it pertains to business and even some of the reasons why.
Sure. And getting into the political process as well it's not necessarily something that you can just say it's within a corporate confine and this is the specifics, because it's so diverse. I mean, they're dealing with so many different things at one time that a lot of times they kind of get sidetracked. And so what's very important to you might be only important for a moment or two in somebody else's world.
Right.
Does that make sense? I'm dancing around this, can you tell? I just got off a jet. I've been flying forever, so if I kind of sound strange, I am. So who has a disengaged story they'd like to share? A time when you really felt disengaged within the organization. Why was that?
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication.
Not really knowing if you're doing what's expected or not, because nobody's telling you you're doing a great job, but nobody's saying you're doing a horrible job, so you're just kind of in limbo.
Kind of lip service. You know, this is a different sidetrack, but if somebody does a good job, and you walk by them and say, "Hey, David, great job," and you go on down the road, was that a sincere thank you for a job well done? Or would it be, David, yesterday afternoon when you were meeting with your supervisors, you were talking specifically to what we have built this company on in these convenience stores. That is exactly what we want to express from them to their employees and to our customers. I can't tell you how happy I am that you're in the position that you are. Please keep up the good job. Now, was that an engaging one?
Yeah.
It's called to specific instance. When you're looking at people and you're giving compliments or you're giving some type of a reward or whatnot, refer to specific instance. It can't be just, hey, great job, or way to go, or whatever. 2 weeks ago when I saw you, and when I saw this, or when you did this, it causes them to understand that I am appreciated. You saw what I did, you appreciated what I did, and you stopped your day to tell me that you appreciated what I did. Small things like that will cause people to stay with the organization longer. If somebody leaves the organization for 50 cents an hour, that's one of the 26%, 100% disengaged people. Now, if it's a 25% raise in income, I can certainly appreciate that, taking care of their families. But that should never be a process if that particular process is handled. It's almost like writing a personal thank you note. Or if somebody's been putting in a huge amount of time, write their spouse a letter. Bob, Mary is an unbelievable asset to this company, and I know that there has been sacrifices on your end to make this happen, and I just want you to know how much we care about you and being a part of our family. You know, it's sincere appreciation. So, one other disengaged moment. Communication was one.
My example was disengaged supervisor or poor supervisor.
Or poor supervisors.
Someone
Explain
that's
on that.
not passionate about the mission and is not, it's more of just a job for them as opposed to passion.
Mhm.
And that trickles down if you don't have a leader that feels that way, the same way as you feel.
Absolutely. David and I were just touching on this a little bit. David, I hope I don't pick on you. It's all right.
I mean, talk.
Wait till we get farther along, you'll regret that. When two worlds collide, when this thing falls to the ground. This is, and we were talking about how to destroy the best salesperson you ever have, make him a sales manager, pretty much. This is the world that the individual lives in as an employee. This is the world that the individual will have to live in as a manager. Can you all see that? As a manager. The only things that intersect is a very small portion of what either has made them an excellent employee or what the company wants them to become as a great manager. It is extremely difficult to eliminate all of this because in sales I want to continue to do it myself, and especially if I'm homegrown. I mean, there's the Saturday barbecues. There's the interaction of friends versus interaction of supervisory capabilities. And those are some things that companies have to start realizing, that when we're talking with our people about moving up and moving forward, what's the expectations? How many in here knows exactly what your job description is? Let me ask you this. When you got hired in your job description, how many of you is now 4 times more on your plate for that job that's in your job description? How many people do annual reviews? Do others do it more than once annually? Do you do biannually, quarterly? An annual review really should be, job well done, here's your bonus. Or here's a raise, or whatever. If the conversation ever comes up that back in February you did this, this, and this, and that wasn't really good about that, how much impact do you think that that actually has on changing that person's direction, or having some type of animosity built up, like going, I can't remember yesterday, and you're dragging something back up last February? Because individuals, as we move along, it is a learning process. Socrates said, tell me and I will forget. Show me and I may not remember, and involve me, I will do. Hands-on is everything within an organization. Assumption in training is deadly. It's sort of like prescription without prognosis is malpractice. So when we're talking about the February problem or whatnot, then there should have been a conversation in February if that was the case. Or in every week, where am I? State of the Union, how's this going? How are we building? Because we do have tremendous amounts of more responsibilities put on us every day. In 2008, when the recession hit, about 30% of the corporations eliminated or 70% of the corporations eliminated 30% of their workforce. And the EEO just basically said, that's fine, we need to keep the business running. They have the bailouts and those types of things. Because really the only way a corporation can cut money, expenses, is to let people go. Rent's the same, utilities the same, fuel's the same, people go. So in 2008, group of 10 employees went to 7. There was an old study that used to say that any employee that was at a company for more than 2 years, when they walked out the door, it cost the company 1.5 times their salary to replace them. Finding somebody new, getting them back in the benefit package, getting other people to train them and do those types of things. In today's world, it's 3 times their salary. Because what happened was is that when the 30% of the employees were let go, say for instance there was a floor supervisor who had been there for 25 years, and then all of a sudden, 3 years later after he was dismissed, he sees floor supervisor job come back up at company X, Y, and Z. Oh my gosh, my job back. I'm here to apply. What do they tell him? You're underqualified. Because now that job has taken over IT. That job now has HR applied to it. That job now has this, it has morphed. So it's not just replacing one aspect of a job, it's now replacing 2.5 to 3 different jobs. And so when companies are just slowly but surely adding these things to you as we're running down the track, a lot of times without clarification, that's when our problems start, because we really start to feel like the load is too hard to carry, but we're very hesitant to speak up because we don't want to seem as though we can't handle that particular amount of responsibility. It's innate in all of us. We do that simply because we're aggressive A-type winners. I mean, everyone in this room, I can tell. So how does that place us? Well, if an organization is not engaging in you or the people that you work with, and they truly understand that, hey, they have my back. If I make a mistake, it's simply a mistake. It's not something personal. It has nothing to do with reflecting on me or I'm going to lose my job. And they continue to give you the empowerment to make those decisions. Does anybody ever call Netflix or anybody like you had a problem? I swear those guys are in Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops and they're hanging out at a beach and it's like, hey man, what's the problem? Blah, blah, blah. No problem. Got it fixed. What else? I mean, they don't ask anybody. It's the most easiest, laid-back conversation, but that's how they've been trained. If you have an employee, how many people, I won't say that. I was going to say, how many people have an employee who's been in with your company for about 5 years and everybody hates them and they're not. But usually, a lot of times, there's somebody within an organization that it's like, oh man, Jim, that guy should have been hammered 2 years ago. I don't know. He must be, I don't know. What's the deal with this guy? Well, Jim's not a bad employee. Jim has been trained to be a bad employee. Because if anything were out of the ordinary in what I was supposed to do in job functions, why wasn't it corrected immediately? And that's when we get back to that this is the only portion up here. This has to go away. And so if I'm bringing in a whole new skill set, I have to be associated with that individual all the time until I know they have it right. And we like to just, here's a typical example. Here's a bolt. Put the nut on the bolt, and the bumper won't fall off. Now, you can use a crescent wrench, or you can use a socket wrench, or you can use a pair of pliers if you didn't have either one of those, but you got to be really careful because if you bend it down too hard, you might strip the threads, and then the bolt will go up and down and scrape the chrome off the bumper, but I guess in the end, if you put the nut on the bolt, the bumper won't fall off. Does that sound like a Monday morning meeting that you always have? You walk out there and go, the same old thing. Dale Carnegie, we say we take a 30-minute meeting and make it into 2. Because there's a reason why you call a meeting. And when I get done with this quick little meeting, I'm never going to have to talk about here's a bolt, here's a nut. But we try to give everyone, it's not that we're ad-libbing, it's like we're trying to give everyone a piece of our knowledge that has been a hindrance to our path of success that has blocked us in the past. So I'm going to give it to you, something I've learned in 30 years, all in about 5 minutes. Here you go. And there's no set course of direction. So how can we ever think that we can take somebody and put them in a different position and they read a book, here's your job description, okay, go get a tiger and we'll see you later. And oh, by the way, in a year we're going to talk about how well you did. Right? Does that all make sense? Engagement means hands-on. We have to know who we are, what we're expected to do, clear-cut avenues on how to get there, and what's the path of progression within the organization. You know, if all you want to be is a bag boy, wonderful, we need bag boys. But if you want to be a supervisor, what are the steps does it take to become a supervisor? You have to do this, 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 boom. It's drawn out. And when they come up and say, gosh, how come I haven't been promoted? Well, let's go back to the 5-step program. Have you done this? Yes. Have you done this? No. Okay. It's real easy to go back and reassess that process. Does that all make sense? Okay. So, here's what we're going to do. In front of you, there are these little pieces of paper here. I'm going to break you guys up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, perfect. You 4 are a team. You 4 are a team. You 4 are a team. And you 4 are a team. And what I want you to do is take this piece of easel paper and draw what an engaged employee looks like. Okay? Here's a sheet right here. Pull your chairs over, get close to each other.
She gets really creative.
You're drawing what an engaged employee is.
Susie, you've been nominated.
Okay, now, this is a collaborative effort. This is a collaborative effort, so I want everybody to raise their hands and point their finger in the air. Within your group, I want you to point to the individual who's going to be your team leader. Now. Okay, so, who is it here? David? David here, and who is it here? Okay, and who is it here? Okay, and who is it here? Now, we've either identified the 4 of the best-looking, smartest individuals in this room, or the 4 that have the slowest response time in the group. So what I want you to do as the leader, and a leader asks questions. Don't give your response as the leader asks questions. So the questions are going to be, what does an engaged employee look like? Sight, sound, dress, whatever that is. So you're going to be prompting everyone to contribute to this project. Everybody got it? Okay, go.
Draw it. The leader, a good leader, talent, that person, I'm searching for good talent.
Flat balance.
I'm not.
I like the smiley face. Yeah, I mean, what more is this? I'm happy. Yes, I'm relaxed.
I'll let you guys draw. So.
I think they want to be expressive, So we want flat balance with support.
Okay. Challenge.
I've got a dress.
You are engaged. Yeah. Well, I think that's concept of flow, challenge and skills. So you mentioned they had a scene. So flow, where the challenge is here, and the person's skill set is here, that's a flow. We're engaged, like video games. It's video games. You know how they play video games all night, or if you're in a project, you're so engaged in that project that you lose track of time. that's what, I think engagement is, person who has the skill set and the challenge and the culture.
Well, that's what I see.
And then that's a key thing too.
And I want too, the ability to, ideas, you know,
They can, their ideas
yeah.
Creativity, and maybe we should draw to it, draw to light, maybe a little explorations like the old Batman words right around that.
And maybe have one ear cocked a different way, because you just don't know how to go in this direction. Light bulbs, okay. Okay. Expand on that too, maybe there's a lot of things firing off at you.
Yeah, so that creativity, what did you say? You have the ideas you said.
So I need to
the light
draw
bulbs
your
is
ear,
what?
your reflection.
The ability to hear thought expressions on us and have an effect in the future.
So, using your mouth to express yourself.
Engaged, yeah, where we're like allowed to what?
standing up.
So this is great. Small engaged.
I would go back to others, people like little smaller heads, kind of back up there, back up there, back up there.
Oh, well, do that.
That'd be like a hand, showing hands.
He's healthy, he's engaged, he's healthy.
Engaged persons are always towards the future.
Okay.
Engaged, he has ideas, he involves people.
And I like the idea of having other people open and receptive to and then regardless of choosing some position, those ideas and thoughts, and it's a constant.
Not gender specific.
That's right. And all of our one man, he or she is working on the side that they're not taking him or her, they're not going there to get cheerleading. And where's the team?
Brainstorming clouds, kind of like four clouds, and maybe all of these share a big cloud. And everybody's kind of contributing to big clouds.
What's it, what though?
Okay. This
is engaged.
We'll pick the rest of this kind of.
Okay. Both these right. We look at. I mean, this is sort of like a big shield that you try to like run the other one. Okay.
Somebody's big
And I just, let's go back to Rand.
Oh, to this.
I'm not an artist. Right.
Probably should have put a small round. Absolutely. That looks like Spock. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, you did a good job.
Planner.
Yes, it is.
Planner, planner. Public Works Director. How about you? Okay.
You have an opportunity to equally contribute.
Oh, okay. John E.
John, I talked to you on the phone, I think it's true.
Oh, okay.
That's right. strong shoulders.
And there's other people that
Take
are
care of a little,
So, you got different.
so there are multiple.
Yeah, a little flow.
So we've got.
Everybody following up ideas?
That looks like a wool.
Well,
Write it down.
I'm gonna say.
Wow, are you helping? All right. David, be the leader now.
Can you listen?
Girls are organized. With depth in the face.
Maybe we ought to do some scribble, we ought to maybe ought to do some scribbles in it. Speed and shit.
Okay.
Supposed to be.
So y'all can talk free.
Yeah, that would work, yes, both ways.
You have different colors?
Right.
What about his feet? Put his feet down here. Like he's getting ready.
Yeah, that's good.
Really.
Susie Bell. This is Susie Bell.
Yeah, put a question mark in there.
We can have glasses and send us the idea.
Okay, we're gonna take another couple minutes.
I'm gonna do this as a
Are you participating?
Since each person.
Yeah, I know, I have some ideas.
Did they take them?
Yeah.
All right.
So like, maybe we ought to do a little ad that says pro. Because written as it says. People who are engaged have to
It's a process.
along with people
We're gonna get to it.
I'm sorry. Certain tool, maybe we have a tool, maybe we can illustrate with.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a pro.
Right. If you think about it, 75% of people. I mean, that's either a wonderful thing or a
Or
mistake.
we can have a little barbell.
Because really, when you get home with your spouse, your children,
We don't have to work.
all of this other stuff. If you're
Oh,
miserable,
yeah, thank you.
then the only thing you can bring home is misery.
Feel like an engineer's hat or something,
And it
that's
takes
easy.
very little to eliminate that misery.
Bring it on the top hat, and it says pro.
Do I show sincere appreciation? Do I not criticize? Do I establish an eager want in other people? Do I give them something to look forward to?
see what's going on.
That's all. Maybe just need to go to that.
Okay.
No, because a lot of that's not an engagement.
We're a little deep.
Well, everyone follows the reality.
Yeah, you know, we can do like, hammer is good.
There's a lot of little tricks. A lot of little tricks are.
I mean, we could make the word
It's called.
strengths.
Yeah, it's a toolbox.
Yeah.
Like a little box.
Go to that first.
I try to think of those skills.
That's what
So these are.
I.
That's a very strong.
And get them.
He's like, let him
So
manage
the
it.
thing they say is that it brings ownership. And ownership will derive
See,
stress.
maybe
Good way to describe
glasses.
it. But what has to be is that this is a personal adventure for you as well, because the future things will come to us, so you have to bring up the idea. The process now is easy, you know, and now it's don't tell me what the problem is, tell me
It
what the
could, yeah, it
solution.
could be safe, but.
Well, in reality today is, don't tell me what the problem is, don't tell me what the solution is, tell me what two solutions you came up, which ones you bet, which ones you implement, and how's it going? Because I will deal with the problems, because I don't, if I have to find the problem on my own, I don't need to. If I have to find a solution to that
That's
problem.
where I'm at.
We got something like this, here, it's kind of a challenge. Something that's coming down on us.
Yeah, but
We're all have to get right. Oh, great.
Yeah, you're saying you don't need to take the.
And which one would you Oh, yeah, because when, see, you're to put yourself into the decision.
Yes.
And you don't take things back. Well, gosh, I ran into this problem. Well, okay, let me take a look at it. Or let me, no, you just took ownership. And say, well, okay, well, let's just get back, you know, we'll touch base in a couple of weeks. You just threw it into the cloud. Nobody has responsibility. So, here's the situation, here's the area that you came up with. Which one are you going with? What do you expect to happen? What contingency plans are you going to have?
That's probably part of my weakness too, is
Well, and if they continue to walk into your office and you continue to stop, then you don't have a bad employee, you are training them to be able, because how much value is your time?
I'm in too.
Okay, are we about done?
Wiggle through it.
Fabulous. This has absolutely nothing to do with our talk. I just wanted to see if you do it. I'm teasing you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Is we're going to have group number 1. You're going to come right here and bring your artwork and tell us what an engaged employee looks like.
This is our engaged employee. We started off with a head because basically the person is representative of their face. And so we have the head, we have the hands, we have the heart, we have the feet. These are the physical elements required. And then the things that we try to depict are the things going on with inside the person. They are asking questions, represented by the bubble here. They're thinking. With their head, they're seeing. They're what?
The forehead wrinkles.
Yeah, forehead wrinkles.
That means they're really thinking.
Older generation.
They're listening with their big ears, hearing things that are going on around, seeing with their eyes bright and wide open. They're researching with materials and trying to find more information, engaged in what's going on. And then the last thing, they're asking with their mouth, how can I help, or what can I do, how can we improve, things, questions, pertinent questions. And then they're engaged with other employees by holding the hands of others. So, anything else that I missed? Oh, ideas, they're contributing ideas with their thoughts. Anything else there? And that's it.
Okay, group number 2. Come on down.
For some reason, I want to hold hands with employees.
Yeah.
John Dew as an
Wow.
This-
Come on, you're so proud of you.
I think we crammed a lot on here, but this is, please help me if I forget anything. This is our engaged employee. We covered some of the similar things. Feel like he's got ideas constantly, things going on up here in his brain, firing on all cylinders, a lot of circuitry going on up there, the light bulb for good ideas. This is supposed to be a reflection in the mirror showing that he also has eyes in the back of his head, so he sees things coming from multiple directions.
He's a demon.
He works under a spotlight, is able to work under the pressure in the spotlight coming in. What's that?
Broad shoulders.
Oh, yeah, he's got broad shoulders, including shoulder pads to carry the load and be able to do it and withstand the pressure of things that he carries on his shoulders. He's connected to the events with his cell phone and modern technology, but he's also a toolbox kind of guy. He gets down to work. I shouldn't say guy because we made him gender neutral. We made this person gender neutral. He's got coworkers. He's got people following him, but he's also working with other people in the organization. He's got big shoes because he has big shoes to fill, and he's able to fill them. And the two shoes that we have are both the athletic or Air Nike or Jordan type shoes for him to be quick response, but we also gave him a steel-toed boot for when he has to get down to the harder work. And he's able to navigate and make the right choice on which direction to go, which path to choose. Is there anything else? Oh, he's smiling and gritting his teeth at the same time. And he's got a big heart for everyone that's cash. So cash because he's successful. He's listening. The big ears is not just, he was born with them, but he developed them over time, so by listening to his coworkers and supervision.
And his path.
In the path down here.
And group number 3.
Come on. I'll get you.
It's the last thing you all thought you'd be doing last week.
Yeah.
Come on over here, girls. All right, so we decided that we would just list some attributes of engaged employees. What makes a good one? What we would like to have as a good one. So first thing we decided, you have to have a good foundation with a flat balance. You want someone that is busy and organized. This is a bee buzzing around. You need a person that's confident and on the way up. You need someone that asks questions and that is curious. You need a cheerleader, a team leader, and a rah-rah pom-pom cheerleader. You need someone that is a good listener, someone that's independent, this says we the people, that expresses good ideas, that is empowered, that is a muscle, not a chicken leg, that makes it to the finish line, preferably on time, that is thoughtful, has a happy attitude, I guess that's all, and stability. That's what we think.
You can just stick it right there, that'd be fine.
Except we were on the wrong side.
That's okay. I can get you. And last but not least.
Attention to detail, we should have done there too.
Ours was an original thought, totally different than everybody's. So we're going to start our story with a problem. So in our engaged, our ideal engaged employee starts off with, we've got special effects. We've got a light solar there. Starts off with a problem or a purpose. You know, engaged employees have to have a purpose and work towards that purpose. When they start getting into their job and they really become more engaged, they got to work with a different group of people, their coworkers. You know, that adds a lot of value to their experience at work. A lot of feedback going back and forth. They've evolved some pretty large years because listening is a critical skill. We all want to be heard. We're all walking around with a little magic sign saying, make me feel special. And that's what this person's doing with their coworkers. Another thing is having mastery skills. So, you know, our employee is engaged professionally. He's a pro. She's a pro. We recognize that her skills are very unique, but each person that they work with is very important to have unique skills. And this person identifies with them. So our arrows represent, you know, creative thinking with our light bulbs and a lot of dialogue, communications back and forth. And again, with our toolbox, I think others have the idea of a toolbox or strengths. Each person carries a lot of unique strengths. If I'm able to use my strengths, I'm going to be more engaged at work with all my co-workers, teammates, addressing the purpose. So that's kind of where we came up with.
Great.
Very unique.
Very unique. Good job. We're all on the. So would you say that these are pretty good depictions of an engaged employee? Did you find a lot of commonalities? If you were to take an employee and want them to be an engaged employee, could you follow these as blueprints to help move them along? To listening, to become inquisitive, to do these other things. So the question is that we can draw unbelievable pictures. And we have great foundational processes that went into each and every one of the light bulbs, the ears, the arrows, however that was. So where are we in reality in dealing with an individual in moving them forward to becoming a better listener? Or to be able to ask those questions? To be able to become more engaged with their other employees. It doesn't just happen. It's things that we have to work on ourselves. Even if we're just looking at creating more engagement within us as well. You know, we talk a lot about BIDs, or business improvement discussions. All companies have those going into financial reviews or whatnot, and we do a lot of those all over the country. And basically what it is what are your strengths? What are the changes that are affecting your organization or yourself, and what are the challenges that those changes are bringing about? So in looking at employees, or even with ourselves, is that what are their strengths? What is the assessment process of what they can actually do and where they need help? And as this job or whatever task they're on is morphing, what changes are going to be affecting the outcome of that project in relationship to utilizing their strength? And then on the challenge side is that how are we going to empower them to overcome those changes and the challenges to create a better project, a better positioning, and to actually gain more strength out of it? Because we don't want employees just to stay at one level. We want to be able to continue to build them more and more and more. Now, not everyone is going to be a supervisor. Not everyone is going to be a manager. I mean, Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great. Has anyone read that book? It's a very quick little read. It's really great. A lot of great things. But one of the big things that stuck out to me is that the biggest enemy of great is good, because good drives complacency. If I'm really good at something, there's no need for me to move forward. But in actuality, nothing has been presented itself for me to continue to move forward. So people get caught in one particular area, and then when they're caught in an area, it becomes a rut, and then you have complacency, and then stagnation, and then a good employee eventually becomes a disheartened employee. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. So what did you all think? Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
You're bringing up the expectations of different generations kind of hit a note with me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm of the baby boomer generation, and I'm of the, give me a task and I will do it thought process. And probably one of the bigger problems we have is that the people coming in don't follow that plan, and it's very discordant. And I always have these expectations which aren't as important to other employees, and it drives me insane. Yeah, we're talking about basic skills, basic things like, here's your list, do it by this time. How do you address that casualness that I'm seeing more and more in the younger people that are applying? It's not that they're not going to do it, they just don't have the same time frame and drive. Am I the only person that experiences that?
Lack of work ethic is.
I don't know the type of work that.
How many Gen Ys are in here?
I mean, what?
Gen Ys.
I don't
No.
know, what's the definition of?
Okay, here's a real simple thing. Generally, you just look at generations as 20 years. But if you start in 1945, just remember that date, 1945, and you move yourself forward 18 to 20 years. So it could be 45 to 65. That's baby boomers. 65, 85, Gen Xers, 85 and on are the Gen Ys. So you're talking about the Gen Ys now, 30 years old. It's when a generation becomes a voting and legal age is when they are depicted as a generation. So we have the 911 kids or the Gen Zs or the ones that are coming back out. Well, those kids are born at around the beginning of 2000 and 2005, so they're 10. So that's an upcoming generation. So when I'm saying Gen Y, who's born anywhere from 1984, 85 and forward. Anybody in the room?
Who do not know life without a computer.
Who do not know life without a computer.
They have computers
And
all
remember too is that it's not so much character flaws as it's just technology advancements. Because we dealt with things without computers because we didn't have computers. I mean, I remember if you wanted something the next day, you put it on Delta, or the same day, or wherever it was. There was no fax machines. I mean, you couldn't put your TV too close to the drapes or the house would burn down because of the big tubes in the back, right? But the accessibility to the technology today is expediting things exponentially. And so really, what they are growing up with gives them a huge swath of intelligence and access to knowledge and whatnot that we never ever thought about before. However, where is the channeling that is associated with it? Because if in a business situation, I don't want you playing games, but I certainly want you to use that technology to help you within the organization. Now, there's several things we have to look at too. Is when I grew up, we had an office. I go in the office at 7 o'clock in the morning, I go home at 8 o'clock at night. 14 hours a day, whatever that was just my life. In today's world, it's not. It's a mobile workplace. I mean, I have people who work for me, email me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like I'm going to respond. But that's how they do their business. And they can work from home, or they can work from satellite organizations. So see, just simply just the structure of an office is changing in my world. So I really have to step back and take away all of my personal angst and say, how can I take these strengths that they have and build what we have together? Because it's very easy to become polarized. Very easy.
We were taught patience as well. These kids are growing up and it's instant gratification in all areas of their lives almost. You know, you had to wait on the mail for 2 or 3 days. Now you're sending an email, you make a phone call, you send a text. So it's instant gratification. I have 2 of them, so.
Well, you know, it's sad to say, but that's the change. You know, and so the challenges that it presents to me is that it's changing. And it will be different a month from now too, or 2 months. Every 2 years the technology changes.
There's another thing I think that part of the Generation X, I have 4 of them. They have a great passion for things that they see that matter.
Absolutely.
A lot of things though that my generation, we thought mattered, they think is totally a waste of time. And I'll give you a perfect example. Of my 4 kids, 2 2 of them already got married, and one of the big things about getting married is you get a lot of gifts. When our generations were coming along, what's the first thing you did when you got gifts? You made thank you notes. This generation thinks thank you notes is a total, absolute waste of time. And I don't know too many of them who actually will do it unless their mother sits down and makes them do it, you know, and holds their hand while they do it. But they think it's a waste of time. And so we've had to sit back and think, you know, what's the purpose of a thank you note? Well, it's to show appreciation. And really, the thing is, and I think with our jobs, when we give a list of things that have to be done, if we don't do a good job demonstrating to that generation why it matters, then they're going to be like, I don't see why that matters. You're just wasting my time. And I know Harvard Business School, you probably know this, but they've been doing a lot of research on this, and even their business, Masters in Business Administration graduates in recent years, since 2000, show absolutely no concern for how much money they're going to make. They don't care.
That's why the debt load is so heavy on student loans.
Yeah, and to them, money is irrelevant. All they want to do is know how they can help society.
Well, I do, Curie Green Mountain is one of our clients that has been for 22 years. I do in-house classes with them, machine operators, QA, just everybody. They produce, in Knoxville's plant, they produce 93 million K-cups a week, one plant, 93 million. And I go through all of these interviews before we go into these coursework. I mean, I talk to them personally. What are your goals? Why do you think that? Where are you going? And all this stuff. And it was amazing to me on Gen Y's is, why did you join Curie Green Mountain? Because of their community involvement. Because they help Meals on Wheels, because they help with the zoo, because they help with this, they help with that, there was none, in my generation, they got a great dental plan, they got a great medical plan, they got, money's good at this and that. And so I'm literally sitting there absorbing all of this, thinking that you joined this organization for community involvement. And it's a stretch for me to have to think about that because that's so outside my box. But we have to understand that that is extremely important to them, and it's what it was important to us is exactly the same way for them. Extremely intelligent group, don't get me wrong. And a lot of the social mores about writing handwritten notes or whatnot, that's a learned process. They have to see an outcome of it. Because in my generation, it was quite rapid. If you send me a text and you're thanking me for something, I don't even read it. No, I read hard things. But that's my generation. So how do we bridge that gap? And it's the same way with our employees for getting engaged employees. How do we bridge that gap? Because everyone is different. But yet we all have the same core emotional values. That's why the 30 Human Relation Skills in Dale Carnegie is taught in 90 countries and 32 different languages, and we've been doing it for 103 years. Well, it's not a brag fact. To me, that means that if our core competency course is the same that's taught in Beijing, Milan, Paris, France, New York, LA, and Abingdon, Virginia, then we're all alike. It's just different customs, different languages, and those types of things. And we've been doing it for 103 years. It never changes. People sincerely want to know that they're appreciated.
So Jim,
Yes.
the answer to Kathleen's question, is it a different way to present her list that's going to matter to that younger generation to achieve her end result? She wants it accomplished. Is it, instead of giving them a list, a different way of presenting it?
Absolutely. Remember when we were talking about engagement and compliance? If you hand them a list, it's compliance. There's no reason why they should do that other than you handed them a list, and if you don't get it done on time, I'm going to be right down your throat. And so that's kind of the thought process that's behind it. It's kind of difficult to explain in just, we're outside the setting, but here's Oz, okay? And everybody thinks that there's just one yellow brick road to Oz. Well, in actuality, there's 1,000. And it really doesn't matter which one we use as long as we get to Oz. Us as leaders or however we are in that organization, my award, my trophy, is to get to Oz. So how we get there, I really don't care. So the open-ended value of it is, if I'm talking with 5 people saying, we need to get to Oz, give me some of your ideas on how we can do that. And you individually, each one contributes to the process. You never offer your own opinion first, ever. And then as you're taking these things in, you're truly thinking to yourself, in the way I was looking at having this done, is this of merit? And if it is, prod with questions. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Go on a little bit farther with that. So as you move around, if you did want to interject your own opinion, it would be something to the nature of, you know, those are great ideas. I was kicking around this, and then you just throw yours out to the cloud. Because somebody in this group is going to take home an award. Because it's their yellow brick road. But unbeknownst to them, that my yellow brick road is going to be all over their yellow brick road as we're moving forward. Now I have to be open because somebody might just say something and say, man, I was really foolish to think about it my way. But there's participation on their process because it is the movement towards the goal, utilizing their ideas, their values, their inner working, their engagement to get me to my goal, which is Oz. I don't care what trees I pass. So in just handing a list, yes, there needs to be explanation. And there's also inclusionary aspects of it, but when you're having something that needs to be done, then you sit down with that individual and step by step in your mind go through your planning process. Here's what we need to have done prior to this step, and this is what's going to happen before this happens. Here's the money allocations. Here, they're looking at the big picture now, why that has to be done. Because it's not insubordination, truly, it's just that they don't find merit in the way we present things that meant a lot to our generation. I mean, like barking order in our junk, you know, and with the Gen Ys, they don't.
You know, one comment that I like to make along those lines too, because being, you know, baby boomer myself, we were always serious. If you've got something to do, you do it. But I also teach at the college, you know, adjunct instruction. And one of the things that keeps coming up is it has to be fun, kind of like your Netflix example.
Absolutely.
If it's not fun, we don't want any part of it. So I've had to try to relearn and put some type of engagement that involves a fun environment, just something to get them involved. And that's part of our younger generation.
Absolutely. And just change it up, you know, and let them be involved, empower them. Let them make some decisions. You know, we always call it organize, deputize, and supervise. If you have tasks, you organize the process. You find those individuals who you feel who have the strengths and the capabilities of doing it, and you deputize them. And then you step back away and don't ever get involved with it unless you're just trying to put out a fire that's going to burn the building down. They have to do it on their own. Because the more you continue to go in, it's like I hand you the ball. And if they come back with me and say, well, gosh, this is happening, I say, well, okay, here, let me go ahead and email somebody and I'll get back with you on that. You just took back all the responsibility. There is no more responsibility there. If they come back and say, gosh, we were really trying to do this, now, well, let's just get back in about a month or so and talk about it again. You just threw it up into the sky. Accountability is everything in process. So how do we focus getting the Gen Ys or anybody in our organization to fully understand the process that we need to have them do, but yet have finite accountability that this is why we have to do it at this time for this reason, and hold them accountable. It's not what you inspect, it's what you, or expect, it's what you inspect. But I can't do my job and all of yours either. And there's a real difficult thing for us because even with the generational diversity, but with our jobs changing so much and the responsibilities going on, that our fingers are involved with a lot of things. And sometimes it's difficult to let them go. Some of the biggest things that supervisors, managers, people within our structure need to really, really understand is that your time is valuable. And the more you're doing it on something that you're paying someone else to do, you're simply throwing your time away. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered your question or not. It's the way you present the list. It can't be barking orders into the younger generation. They have to understand what the bigger picture is. And it's quite easy to do. Have them, put them in charge of presenting the project. Does that make sense?
The deer in the headlights, the ones that are proposed.
those are deer in the headlights.
Well, can you, like, if you know that, if you're the leader, and you know that a list of things need to be done, can you ask them to make a list of what they wanna do? And then, I don't know, follow up? Let
Well,
them
that-
follow up with you, or, I
I
mean,
kind
what do
of,
you do?
we're letting them lead the crew. The question is, do you have the right people in the right place? Because the process really is that if the right people are in the right place, they'll do the job. If the wrong people are in there and they're not being guided, then they'll never do the job. So the question comes down to it is, do I have the specific tasks for the right person in mind to accomplish this goal? Is it somebody who's just going to be a doer, or is it somebody who has to be a leader? And if it has to be a leader, then there has to be characteristics that we're going to examine of whether or not you're a leader. You know, that gets into a whole different Dale Carnegie aspect of it, of how to be a leader in a group without a title. You know, and so the process, and we're really diversing ourselves. The process is that there is generational diversity, and we have to start with ourselves prior to looking at the problems of others. How am I going to be open and receptive to a new generation of changing things, just as my grandparents looked at me going that this kid's a whack job? Because I was. I mean, just think about what they were used to and what we were used to. I mean, it just changes. Does that make sense? No, kind of not really. You're still stuck in the same problem. Which of the following has the greatest impact on employee engagement? Competitive compensation, benefits, satisfaction with the immediate manager, work-life balance. You know, a lot of times too, when I look at Generation Y, it makes me kind of hurt inside because I didn't really have a good work-life balance. Work was my life. You know, do you work to live or do you live to work? And so if you have a lot of employees who are working to live and you're a live to work, then they'll never be able to meet up to your expectations. So we need to be continually reevaluating ourselves, right? Believe in the senior leadership, opportunities for advancement, pride in the organization, free popcorn, we just threw that one in. If you ever want to know if somebody really enjoys where they work, next time you're in a grocery line, turn around the person next to you and say, hey, where do you work? It takes them longer than 3 seconds, they don't like where they work. Just a little side thought. Yeah. Well, what do you do there? Well, how long have you been there? 20 years. So you don't know where you work and you don't know how. If you'll look in your participant manual, on page 4, there is an assessment. If you all will go through that and just look at those questions and mark which one that you see, one being the completely disagree and 5 is completely agree, and just go through those, and we'll take a kind of a little scoring on that. And then once you're done, if you'll count up your answers and then go through that little multiplying table, we'll kind of figure out where we are on the engagement. many are fully engaged?
Got
Apparently.
like semi-people.
How about partially engaged? Partially disengaged? I'm not gonna hold you to that one. You know, and we're not picking these up either. It's just sort of a self-evaluation, and a lot of things too is that always remember that everything starts from within. Our assessment of other people, our appreciation for other people, our changing and diversity of generations, our ability to adapt, our ability to work through things, it all starts here. And if anything brings out an emotion in you that is of a negative measure, of anger or distrust or something else, truly step back and take a deep breath and go, why am I feeling this? Is there a reason why this is making me feel this way that is a concrete position in the organization that I have control over? Or is this something that's within me because it's not of my ilk or it's not of my upbringing or whatever? Why am I having this feeling? Because emotions play tremendous roles within an organization, but a lot of times emotions only exacerbate the problem. Because if you're ever in a situation where you're upset with somebody, please do yourself a favor and leave for a little while and then come back. I've had to really work hard on that because redhead and whatever, I mean, the first portion of my life, it was management by
Fire.
yeah, exactly. And so it has taken me a long time, and I have always looked too, as you know, Dale Carnegie, we always say is we're common sense, just not common practice. You all know all of this, but we're creatures of habit. Things that work for us, we continue to do over and over and over again. And if the ship sails and we're still on the dock because it's easy and easy, the ship gets farther and farther away. That's why I admire each and every one of you for attending things such as this with a small incubator, business incubator, or anything that you can, because leaders are readers. It takes you out of a pattern of thinking that this is the only way to do it. I mean, have you ever driven home and you kind of just woke up and go, my God, how did I get home? You go out and look at your grill to see if there's not some little old man stuck to the front of your car. You know, but it's because it's in our innate nature, because we don't have to think about those things. And we carry that over into our work life, and it is a rapidly changing work life. So we need to know too that in the new generation, it is about a work-life balance. So they want to know that you're involved with their life. They want to know that you know their family, that you know their children. I mean, not to be creepy, you know. In my generation, I really didn't share a lot about with you, you know, that my wife had cancer or whatever. Those things were just held within, that was our nature. But now it's like the village. And you have to be very open to that. And a lot of times, generation or baby boomers were callous to a lot of things because, like, you know, pull up your straps and go on. You know, I mean, geez. I mean, but it is hugely important to that individual for them to know you care. And it takes a very small amount of time to do that, especially when you're mid-level management. When you're talking about your supervisors in today's world need to know that you have their back. And if you can say, how was Mary's piano recital last week, I can assure you, you just went up about 10 rungs on that ladder, because now you're involved with their life. You know, it's no longer dollars and cents. And another huge area that people are using us is simply the fact of attrition in employment. People leaving the organization. We were working with Food City at the distribution center, and they were losing about 160 people a year based upon just in the distribution center how they would hire, and you know, people would leave the company. It was costing them $3,600 a pop. 160 people times $3,600 every year, year in, year out. And the reasoning was because it was a low-paying job. I mean, it was literally in a distribution center, so you're loading boxes. But it was also in a very hostile situation because generally, if you had supervisors that if you didn't pick up the work, they put a boot in your rear end, and you know that's all you were. Well, I could go and earn the same amount of money, not somebody just jumped down my back. So it was a complete change within the organization on mid-level management, and that's where we started. It wasn't trying to help the employees, it was trying to help the people who they had an immediate relationship with. Because if there was mistrust that you don't care about me as an individual, then how are you going to ever take corporate policy and push it down towards the employees and A, have them accept it, or B, if they have any concerns, will they ever believe that you're going to take it back up the ladder to corporate? Right? Does that make sense? I've got jet lag, so everybody's looking at it like, no. So, but that's the process of employee engagement. It's how are we involved with their lives and they know that we're sincere. Now, being involved with their lives, yes, about their families, and yes, about all of this, but being involved with their lives as well is that I'm going to take 75% of your life, because that's what you're going to be spending with me outside of your family, and I'm going to show you I care because I'm hands-on with you until you get this right. And I want you to truly understand that no matter what happens, it's not personal. If you make a mistake, I don't hate you. It's not because you're an idiot. It's just that we make mistakes. So truly, as a leader, my goal is to make sure you never make that mistake again. But I have to instill in them to make sure that you've learned not to ever make that mistake again. Because if it's repetitive, first thing I do is I check on the supervisor. And if the supervisor is doing everything they can to correct that situation, then it's the individual. So why is the individual not getting it? And don't get me wrong, Dale Carnegie is not the warm and fuzzy. There's only so many chairs and musical chairs. If there's a cancer within the organization, they have surgeons for that. You know, people love misery, and misery loves misery. For some reason, it gives them this bond. And so when you have those instigators, those 26% who are 100% disengaged, they're looking for open opportunities for anybody who may be partially happy to have something bad happen to them. See, I told you. Right? And if they have a personal relationship with you and they have that trust feeling, I don't care who comes behind you and says anything negative, they'll not believe it. Because they've seen with their own eyes that you are sincerely interested in what they're doing. And plus, your business thrives. I mean, you cannot continue to be a training organization. Right, David? I mean, if I'm taking my senior leadership and all they do is train instead of moving my company forward, then, you know, I'm in the employment agency business. It even happens within my organization. I take young, extremely intelligent, good-looking kids, a lot of drive, educated. I bring them into the fold. I give them tens of thousands of dollars worth of training. I create better, more self-confidence, higher communication skills, better leadership skills, stress and worry management principles. And then what do? I put them in front of decision makers. And you know what the next question is? How much they pay you, Dale Carnegie? And then I get a phone call. I'm on like a 2 or 3 year cycle of leadership training. And so we've had to step back completely, dragging the president of my company tooth and nail, but change the entire paradigm of how we hire and what our compensation package is. Because we can't have somebody who just simply is going to leave because of a dollar amount in the beginning. They have to be established. And I always said that, you know, if somebody leaves you for 50 cents an hour, they're leaving you, not the company. But we had to change the paradigm. And that paradigm had been here for a long, long time. But getting back to this one little and quick little sidebar here is that how I am understanding the Generation Y, I had hired a young man who was a youth pastor up in the Northeast. And he and his wife and 2 little babies, a little 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, I guess, moved down, wanted to go into the capitalist market, and moved into the basement of her parents' rental home. So he goes through this whole process, you know, I'm training it just like I had told you about it, and on the day of the graduation of one of our workshop, of our courses, he's pacing around like a little monkey on a hot tin roof, you know, kind of like my son would do. And this is just shortly after he told me that, oh, they're pregnant again. So now I'm thinking, okay, young kids, she stays at home, 2 there, 1 on the way, basement of mother's rental home. Let me kind of process this Gen Y thing, how's this all working, it's all happy and good. And so I just stopped him and I said, okay, what? When are you leaving? And he goes, this is my last day. He's gonna go on and become an internet marketer and do some things that he's always wanted to do or whatnot. And so in the frozen moment of my generation, of my baby boomer life, I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Your wife stays at home, you have 2 kids, 1 on the way, you're living in the basement of her parents' rented house, and you quit your job? He was as happy as he could be. And I just sat there, I really wanted to say, how much gasoline can I pour on this kid and just make sure that he understands every pitfall that you're gonna crash and burn and die and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, hey, God love you. Best of luck to you. But it was a shift completely in my mores. I mean, and so getting back with some of the things, I had to look deep within because that broke every rule in my book. But not his, because he was the happiest kid around. It really made me mad because he's probably happier than I am. So we can all learn from that. Anyway, we're digressing. So, employee engagement pays high dividends. We found that a higher engagement outperforms others by almost 202%, 19% higher shareholder return, and engaged employees lower turnover. Turnover is a huge problem for companies. Fully engaged, they stay with the organization longer, contribute to the bottom line. We all know that if we can get our employees to stay longer with the organization becomes stronger by the day. You don't have to continue relearning the process, reliving the dream, or whatever that is, and they'll stick and they will be ambassadors for your organization. Partially engaged is concentrate on tasks, not outcomes, want to be told what to do and do it and get paid and go home. They can go either way. They're the worker bees, and these are the people who are going to be behind the counters or wherever that is, and that's where they are. So how can I make that position the very best for them at that position, because that's where they want to stay. And then looking at your disengaged associates and negativity and sabotage progress. And that's everywhere. That's just human nature. So the process is that how do we get people to stay fully engaged? You know, and when we're looking at, I'll just kind of refer to a sales kind of atmosphere, since I was working with a company in sales just a little while ago. There we go. Here's a line of employees. 10% of the employees generally in a sales organization produce about 80%. You know, it's the old 80-20 rule. Well, generally speaking, sales, about 10% produce 80% of revenue. 60% are in the middle, and 30% are non-producers. It's generally speaking on the 80-20 rule, and it works all with 20% of the people do 80% of work, 20% of the people produce 80% of revenue. It's just a very excellent little deal. But so as a manager and looking at this, where do I concentrate all of my efforts?
Where should?
Egotistically, I can make anybody a great salesperson. And this is where I'm going to concentrate. I will turn those guys around. When in actuality, this 10% can go work anywhere. And if I'm not taking care of my best employees, my best supervisors, managers, person who's digging into whatever it is, if I'm not taking care of them, they'll leave me. And actually only about 30% or 50% of that 60% has the ability to move this way, and yet I'm concentrating everything down here. The ability for us to determine where that line is to move our business growth here, show them how much they're appreciated, and eliminate this is the best possible solution. Now, I'm not saying to be, just being really rough with individuals, but this is your 26% that have 100% disengagement. And we always have to remember,
Big problem that I find there, though, is that oftentimes companies, and I've been in this position myself, they eliminate the 30% and they give their work to the 10%. And that's when the 10% starts feeling like we're overtaxed. You're piling the work onto us and the responsibility and the expectation because you've eliminated all of these non-producers.
right,
And, I had sales territory that went from one state to 5 states. Because you eliminated all of the non-producers, and because I was always doing a good job, now I have more work to do. And again, the problem is, especially with the newest, the generation Ys, the millennials, they don't want more work because they don't really care how much money they're making. And the biggest thing that I try to figure out is how, I know you're saying we're wasting our time trying to get that 30% to do the job. But I don't know, it seems like the common answer is to eliminate them and pile all that work onto the top producers.
well, it's not necessarily to eliminate the positioning, however, it's finding the right place. Perhaps there's somebody in here who does more of a clerical aspect of it. Perhaps there's somebody in here who can be placed in a different position that can help as a support staff. People say that there's not into compensation. Money means nothing. It's what you can do with the money means everything. Like if I were to give you $10,000, the first thing you say, well, what are you going to do with $10,000? I'm going to pay off all my bills. Well, heck with the bills, I'm going to Bermuda. Heck with Bermuda, I'm buying a Porsche. It's not the money. It's what can I do with the money. And so in an evaluation process, truly, when people work for me, I know what makes them happy. If somebody wants to travel and I give them a bonus, here's first-class tickets to Paris. I don't even talk money. I drive them towards what makes them want to be motivated with. So as far as a compensation aspect of it, what makes them the most happy? And you have to get them in. This isn't a generality, those things. I mean, you can't go in with just a brush and fire 30% of the population. However, the point really is that you as leaders, where are you focusing your time and effort? First of all, it has to be self-evaluation. Second of all, it has to be structural evaluation. Are you actually telling people exactly what their job description is? Because if they don't know specifics, there is no accountability. And without accountability, there is no excellence. A person at their best is extraordinary. And the only way that we do that is that we set them into a position to where they grow and have accomplishments, and there's accountability. Does that make sense? Make sense, kind of, sort of, not really? What do you think, David?
Kind of, sort of. We were just strayed off of this so much, so anyway.
Engagement increase, first 5 years declines, it stagnates, we've already done all that. Let's just see what else we can go on here. That's your assessment scores. Levels of engagement, there's also a place in here in your participant manual to where if you wanted to go through and it would ask you to place an X where you feel that you are. This will be on page 7. These are all engagement processes, and we have done it straight so far from this workshop anyway. So let me ask you, within your organization, where do you see the opportunity for the largest growth in employee engagement that will benefit the company? Where in your organization do you see the opportunity for the largest growth in employee engagement to benefit the company? Yes.
I see it in the lower income levels, personally. I just hear from a lot of them that, you know, they are focused on salary, raises. They're not engaged necessarily with the work they're doing or the purpose of our organization as much as all they see is dollar signs. That's motivation. And that's their claim, is that, you know, get more money, we would be more motivated. So to me, it seems like that's where there's a lot of potential if we could somehow get them better engaged.
And you're with what company?
The town of Abington.
The town of Abington. Everybody's with the town of Abington. Yes.
I just wanted to piggyback on that. I think they do have to make enough to cover their needs.
Absolutely.
And if somebody's not making a wage enough to take care of their needs, engagement in their job is not gonna be a top priority.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that was the paradigm with Dale Carnegie. I mean, we would hire people in and be 100% commission. And I don't know, and all of you who have ever been, anybody been in a 100% commission job?
I'm pretty close to it, yeah.
I thrive on it.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because no one can ever tell me how much I can make. But they never see me crying in my bed, curdled in a fetal position because I can't afford my car payment. You know, I mean, that's just psychotic, but you know, you don't find very many of those people there. So the paradigm shift is that, and I said dragging the president of this company by, I have to pay my people salaries, and they get overrides, because I don't want them to be sitting in front of somebody talking to them about a $100,000 training program, worried about $235 where their power's gonna get turned on.
Right.
And I agree wholeheartedly with you there. And we have to deal in this way too, is that in our educational system, well, this is Jim-isms, this isn't Dale Carnegie-isms. In our educational systems, these professors have taught our children that if you take my class, you're worth $80,000 as soon as you step out on the street. In the height of the dot boom, or the dot-com boom, in the height of the real estate boom, when everybody was driving Porsches and all of that type of thing, that was a pretty good truism. Right now, absolutely not. The average salary of an attorney graduating from school, now I'm not talking from Harvard and he's paging for the Supreme Court or whatever, but just your average Joe, they have $195,000 worth of student debt and they make $19,500 annually on average across the country. An attorney. Life's changed. How would you ever pay off $195,000 in debt with $19,500? And see, that's where the misnomer is, and that's when we're hiring people and we're looking. We have to really investigate, where do you see life? You know, I used to always say, I'd love to hire people that have a lot of debt. More debt, the better employees they are, because they got to have a job. You know, that's kind of a crazy thing, isn't it? But now, I mean, you look at everybody, they all have debt. You know, and so then you're just trying to find the best of the debtors.
Well, those of us who don't work for the town, you know, I have a ceiling on what I'm allowed to, number of hours and rate of pay, because they're so afraid they're gonna get caught having to provide some sort of government benefit.
Sure.
And that is a real damper on the employees and on me, I gotta admit, I don't like it either. So how do you give them a carrot when that just isn't gonna happen?
So what you're saying is that you're not letting them be full-time employees because of a benefit situation?
My
Or
board is not letting them be full-time employees.
because of the benefit situation?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I wish there was a magic answer or a magic wand. The scenario really gets down to is, what is our focus on? Is our focus now on just how much money I'm paying you, or the job and the job opportunity? Because unless I can get somebody excited about Dale Carnegie and find that person who truly believes that this helps people, it's not Jim Jonestown, it's not the Kool-Aid, it's not, you know, these are truly hard proven facts that change people's lives. Unless they truly believe in that, then it's all about the money. And I can't pay you $80,000 when you walk right out of college. So I guess my answer to you is that I have to look for the individual whose heart is where they need to be. and I have to present my company as everything that it is presented to be. Here's the dollars. I mean, that's a black and white. If these dollars aren't going to suffice in your world, then there's no sense in us continuing to go on with our conversation. I used to have a friend of mine who, whenever he hired somebody, they would come into his office and he'd hand them an envelope. He said, I want you to go down to the corner coffee shop and open this envelope. So not even talking to them, they would go down and they'd open this envelope and it would be a list of about 20 things with a $5 bill. And the top would say is, have a cup of coffee on me and read these lists of non-negotiables. And if you still want a job, come back and see me. I said, so what was the return? And I said, I get about 5 out of 100 would come back. But I never had to talk to him again. Because these 20 items, non-negotiable. Period. I don't care what you say, how it is, this is the truth, this is what we got to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, and I guess what I bring that up to us is that how succinctly do we present what we want people to do? Who we are, what we want to accomplish, and here's what I want you to do to fit into it. And then you have to make the decision in a very earnest, engaging way as if you want to be a part of that. Because a lot of times we're filling positions just because we have to have the positions filled, because it's a hellacious game we play. But all we're doing is just compounding the problem because we're replacing them every 6 months. Yes?
One thing that I see quite honestly is, especially when we're trying to hire people, they're more than happy to take the job at the rate of pay when we're hiring them.
Absolutely.
And they come in and they're happy. What I think oftentimes becomes the hurdle is when they see us being so extravagantly wasteful. And we do things without regard to the fact that they took that job thinking they were going to come in and help our organization. They were happy to take the job at that rate of pay. And then we can't afford to give them any more. But we can do all kinds of other things. And they, it's like our children. Our children sense in us as parents, mine do, if I'm saying no to them but yes to me. You know, they see it real clearly.
Don't do as I do, do as I say.
Yeah, exactly. And people will, and they've been there a year and they're saying, you know, I was happy to take this job at this rate of pay, but now I'm sick and tired of working here at this rate of pay. Because I see what you're doing with all the rest of the money, and I see what where your interest lies, and it's not in me.
Is that a wrong thing?
Yeah, it's a horrible thing.
Is that a wrong thing for them to be feeling that way?
No, I think it's right. I think,
you know, and the most
that's
wonderful thing would be is if they told you that,
Yeah.
versus just quit and walk out.
Sure.
yeah, if they could find the strength to do that.
Here's just an idea in your organization. You can call them return on investment projects, you can call them a continuous process improvement project, you can call them anything you have. You have a group of people in specific instances. And say, I want you, and first let me kind of preface this. When you're asking for ideas in a group, don't ever do it in a group. Because introverts will withdraw and think about their answer. Extroverts get tired of silence and blah, blah. And then that's a great idea. That's generally speaking, that's what the supervisors do, and then everybody's, yeah, boss, that's a great idea, and then you walk out the door and go, that's the stupidest idea ever. That's one process. But another process too is to ask them what hits you in the face every day that you honestly stop and say, somebody ought to do something about that. I want you to go home tonight and write down 3 ideas to make this a better place. Don't do it here. Don't talk to anybody who works here. I want you to just go. And then have them bring those ideas back to you. And it will be amazing. Now some are just going to be off the wall crazy stuff, but it'll be amazing what you start seeing. And you'll see patterns. Because the process is that what do you see every day that you always think that somebody should do something like, well, today you're the somebody. And then when you get those ideas and you really have gone through and looked at what really has a benefit, then you form teams. And you say, here's 2 ideas that have been presented to us. We want you to expand on those. And they move the process forward. And it causes a lot of how they interact with each other, how they talk with management. There's more resources needed or however. But they are becoming owners of the organization and not employees. Because as soon as I can have my employees understand that your ideas matter to me and that you know more about what's going on the line than I do because I'm not down there, then that's a process you get. I mean, we went through it with Cure Green Mountain, and they saved $3.5 million. $3.5 million. Unbelievable.
One of the things I did as a supervisor of part-time people whom I had no control over what they made, was made it convenient for them to work there. So let them be in control of their schedule. We had schedules for 12 months. If there were days you didn't want to work for a 12-month period, all you had to do was write your name in the block. I made the schedule around what was convenient for them. So just take control of the things that you do have control of and try to make that part of it a better workplace.
You know,
Do not try to recruit Tommy Tripp.
well,
You can't have.
we have just a few minutes left, and we'll go through Dale Carnegie. We also help people with memory. And in memory, really, the mind is an excited entity sort of thing. And we remember in pictures. We don't remember in words. And the more extravagant the pictures are, the more we remember. So I could say that there's an elephant sitting on top of a hummingbird up in the tree, and that's kind of out of the ordinary, whatnot, but 2 weeks from now, you probably wouldn't even remember it. But if I said that there was a 5,000-pound hummingbird with yellow polka dots on it with a 2-pound elephant sitting on top of its head up in a palm tree, that would probably ring a bell. So we're going to go through a process. It's called stacking. And it's going to be on a process in which will help you go throughout planning almost anything that you do at your organization. You willing to try? Okay. I'm at the beach and there's a 70-foot purple palm tree with yellow stripes going up the sides of it. And inside there's a huge neon sign going up. Desired outcomes. Desired outcomes. Desired outcomes. And now at the bottom of the palm tree, and I'm leaning up against, I have a huge newspaper opened up, and the headlines say current events. Stuck right in the middle of that newspaper is a goalpost. And when you look up, going in the middle of the goalpost is a set of concrete stairs. And at the top of those concrete stairs is a wooden clock with a big oaken frame. So what's the first item? How tall is it?
70 feet.
What color is it?
Purple.
With what on it?
Yellow.
And what's it doing? What's it say? Desired outcomes. And okay, and I'm leaning up against it in the paper. What's it say? And stuck in the middle is a goalpost. And in the middle of the goalpost is a. And at the top of the steps is a. With a oaken frame. On top of the oaken frame is a huge bag of money. All kinds of resources. There's oil and coal. Everything's just dripping out of it. And the oil is running down the stairs and it's hitting up against this hurdle, like a track hurdle. Okay? And you look on the other side and there's a long set of railroad tracks. And when you look down at the very end of it, there's the watchman and he's holding a lantern, but he's got a huge stopwatch. Okay? So on top of the oaken frame is a, and it's doing what? Hitting up against a hurdle. And on the other side of the hurdle is a, and at the very end is with a,
and a big, huge stopwatch.
okay, who thinks that they can go from start to stop? Volunteer. What's the first item? How tall?
70.
What color? Flashing inside is what? I'm leaning up, the paper's open, what's it say? Stuck in the middle is a, and the goalposts are what? At the top of the stairs are with a what? Oaken frame. On top of the frame is a, and what's it doing? What's it hitting up against? And on the other side is a, and at the end is a, that means absolutely nothing. And so when you guys go back to work and they say, what you learn at Dale Carnegie, goes, oh, there's a 70-foot rubber band. You just learned the planning process of almost anything you do at work. The first thing you think of is what is your desired outcome? What is the desired outcome of this plan? You assess what's currently happening. What are the current situations, the current issues? Then it's what are the goals of this plan, the goalpost. Then what steps are necessary to accomplish those goals. The clock represents what time frame is involved. The money bag on top is what resources are needed to do this. The hurdle means is that when we hit a hurdle, what are the contingency plans that we have to make to keep this ball moving? And on the other side, the railroad tracks is how do we track it? And the lantern guy with the watch is how do we measure it? What are your desired outcomes? What are the current events? What are the goals of this plan? What are the steps necessary to make it happen? What time frames do we work into it? What resources do we need to have? What are the hurdles we might come up with and the contingency plans that we need? How do we track it? How do we measure it? If you'll remember the purple palm tree to the guy with the watch, I can assure you your life will be a lot easier. Thank you guys for letting me share with you. This is like a little input form. If you guys would like to know any other information, or we have a lot of different classes that we're going to be starting up in this area, and I will be happy to expand those with you all.
So while Jim's handing it out, please give him one more round of applause. This will be and next week, Sandy Ratliff from behind, can you tell us what we're having?
Next week is the last final session for our QuickBooks.
Final session of QuickBooks, and this session is going to be Q&A. She is willing to come in and answer any questions that you have with any of your software issues. So we're looking forward to that.
And I do want to mention on September the 23rd is our retail experience. So if you have work with any small business owners that have retail or friends, I highly recommend this session. How that customer's the most important thing that walks in the door.
Jim, I can tell you for sure you're the only speaker we've had in a year and a half that has kept their entire audience for 2 hours.
Well,